Hello, I'm Bjorn, and welcome back to Bjorn Does Movies. And today, guys, we finally made it. We're at the finale of my entire Suicide Squad series. This is the last one I'm ever going to make, probably, 99% sure, unless I come up with something really cool, in which case we're definitely going to do that. But no, this is really it, guys. I probably will never write another one of these. So, before we start, if y'all enjoy these videos, remember to give me a like and subscribe to see more stuff. You don't want to miss anything from me. Because my stuff is sort of like series, you want to make sure you're up to date on every episode. And if you like these videos, go check out some of my other stuff. Alright, let's get right into it. No more waiting. Here's the finale.
Hey, just a quick reminder that this is part 3 of the 5th movie, and there are 2 other movies before this one. So really, you're actually quite literally at the end of this entire series. And if you haven't watched the previous movies, I would highly recommend going back and watching those. Otherwise, this movie is going to make no sense to you whatsoever. Alright, let's get into it, guys. We see Flatline plug in her flash drive, the one she wasn't sure made a full copy. The whole team waits behind her with bated breath as it's loaded. It pulls up. She successfully got the copy before the file was destroyed. We see her quickly make 3 copies. We're going to cut to the planning table. We see Flatline toss 3 flash drives onto the table. We hear Shade say, 3 targets, 3 teams. We have to take out every server or the portal's open and we lose. Flatline says, I hate to always be the nihilist, but how are we going to divide up? We don't know what sort of forces are going to be guarding these things. Whoever Nightshade attacks will certainly die. Shade says, no. She'll target me. Where I attack, she will too. I promise. Ratcatcher says, how can you be sure? Shade says, she has something of an obsession with me. I only just recently realized something about her, and I think I can kill her. Kima says, okay, so if she attacks you, that'll only leave whatever metahuman she has left to guard the other terminals. Katana says, it'll be Gentleman Ghost and Clue Master. They were the only 2 members of her squad left. Flatline says, and Clock King. Shade says, right. So we need 3 teams. I'll take Katana and Madame Xanadu. Flatline says, me and Matthew will take one. Shade says, alright. And Ratcatcher says, I'll take Dorothy and Anawe. Shade says, right. We have a plan. Get these flash drives into those terminals and we buy the world a couple of months. If I can kill Nightshade, it all ends today. We hear a door open and Harley enters the room. Flatline says, Harley, you're awake. Harley says, well, I feel like a pile of dynamite blew up in my face. Ratcatcher says, actually, that's not far off. Harley says, really? Where's Dubois? They all fall silent for a moment. It's Kima who speaks up. He didn't make it. Harley's face falls. She says, how? Ratcatcher says, one of Nightshade's men killed him. Harley said, and what are we going to do about it? Because right now I feel like punching something. We're going to cut to Clock King. We see Clock King moving down a hall towards Lilith Clay's room. He approaches the door and sighs. He starts to open it. We hear a voice from behind him. You don't want to see her. Trust me. It's Clue Master. Clock King says, I think I do. Clue Master says, well, remember I tried to warn you. She's not right in the head. Clock King turns away from him and enters the room. It's dark, and all we can hear are insane whispers from Lilith. She rocks back and forth on her bed. Clock King says, Lilith? She looks suddenly and jumps back behind the bed. After a moment, she peers up from her hiding space. Talkman? Is that you? Clock King says, yeah. Lilith rushes to him and grabs his hand. The shadow comes. It will coat the sky and the sun. Blood will spill across the worlds. The blight will never cease its consumption. The brain. She needs the brain. The brain. Clock King pulls his hand away and shakes her shoulders. What do you mean? Lilith says, we've already lost. It's over. I've seen it. The shadow. The shadow. The brain. Clock King shakes his head and leaves her mumbling in the dark. He exits the room and finds Clue Master waiting. Clue Master smiles. I told you. She's lost her mind. Clock King snorts and then moves back down towards the hall. Clue Master says, be seeing you. Clock King spares a look back, but doesn't turn around. The camera focuses on Clue Master. We see the bright purple in his eyes. It's an unnatural color. We're going to cut to Madame Xanadu's room. We see Xanadu sitting at her desk. Katana walks in and shuts the door behind her. Katana says, the others have made a plan. Madame Xanadu says, I know. Katana asks, what do the cards tell you? Xanadu looks away. Katana presses. Tell me, Nimue. Please. Madame Xanadu says, they tell me that we have a chance, but they also say that you will die for it. That you must die for it. Katana sighs and says, so be it. I am prepared to die. Madame Xanadu says, I know. Katana says, tell me this. Will I be reunited with Masio on the other side, or is his soul truly bound to my blade? Madame Xanadu says, I do not know. Even I cannot see beyond the veil of the dead. I'm afraid Miss Nikia is alone in that capability. Katana says, she does not believe there is anything after. Madame Xanadu says, then she is mistaken. There is undoubtedly something beyond this. What it is, we may only guess at. I will miss you, old friend. Katana says, and I you. But we will see each other again, and whatever lies beyond. We're going to cut to the hall. We see the squad preparing to leave. Harley says, remember, this isn't just a saving the world thing anymore. They made it a revenge thing, and it's going to be cold, but also sweet, like pudding or ice cream. She pulls her bat off the shelf on the wall and smacks it into her hand. She laughs manically. I'm going to knock that bitch's brains right out of her skull. Shade says, I'm not actually sure she even has a brain. Harley says, okay, I'll knock whatever is in there right onto the floor, and then I'm gonna piss on it. Who's with me? Flatline says, I don't know about the pissing part, but I like the killing part. We hear the song Wild Child by the Black Keys play as we see the squad gearing up. We see Flatline sharpen her knife on the end of her knife rope, next to Kimo, who attaches a new Geiger counter onto his shoulder, replacing the broken one. We see Katana sharpening her sword. As she does, we can hear her whispering to it. She speaks to the soul of her dead husband. We see Ratcatcher pull her gas mask over her face. She tucks one of Bloodsport's pistols onto her belt. We see Dorothy staring at a closet door in her room. No skeleton man emerges her. She stands up and leaves. Sergeant Stuffy appears on her shoulder. We see King Shark draw war paint across his face with his hand. Lastly, we see Madame Xanadu exit her room. She spares a look for Katana, then Shade. We see a frown grow across her face. We hear Shade say, we all know the plan. Get to your terminals and turn them off. We see Katana throw down a ring portal. Kimo and Flatline enter the portal. Katana picks it up and then spins it again. A new portal opens. This time we see Ratcatcher, Dorothy, and King Shark enter. Lastly, they spin it up again, and we see Harley, Shade, Katana, and Madame Xanadu vanish, leaving the room empty. We're going to follow each team in sort of like a split screen thing, like a fun little stylistic bit, as they appear in front of a set of bunkers each. Crowds of people are waiting there. They have purple eyes. They immediately turn and start to attack the squad. The song Wild Child picks up as we see a montage of all three teams fighting against the mind-controlled minions to get into the rooms. I'll describe each battle, but kind of imagine they're being cut between quickly and stylistically, like at pivotal moments. You'd let an editor kind of go crazy with this. So I'll describe how each person fights, and y'all can imagine them like sort of swapping between each other in the middle of the fight. I'm also going to refer to the mind-controlled people as zombies here for simplicity's sake. We see Ratcatcher send swarms of rats onto two of the zombies. They eat them alive. Lastly, she shoots one in the head with Bloodsport's pistol. King Shark throws a giant zombie against the wall, causing it to explode and to gore. He grabs another one and eats it whole. Dorothy holds her hands out, and the cartoon octopus tentacles fly out. They wrap around a zombie and twist it into two pieces. With her other hand, she summons Jolly Hanger, who appears briefly in Suicide Squad 3. He impales the zombie with a twisted mass of hangers. Sergeant Stuffy dives off her shoulder and onto another zombie. He begins to wildly stab it in the skull with his knives until it dies. We see Madame Xanadu light two zombies on fire with flames she summons from her hands. We see Shade cut one in half with a sword made entirely from colorful swirling light. He summons a wall which knocks another one into Harley, who swings her bat at it, smashing its skull. She immediately kicks another one in the balls and then smashes it in the head with her bat as it falls over. We see Katana slice two with one stroke. As she puts her sword back into its sheath, their heads fall to the floor. Finally, we're going to cut to Kimo and Flatline. We see Kimo grab two of them and smash their heads together. They both explode. Flatline flips over his back as he bends over and uses her knife rope to slit a zombie's throat midair. She follows up with it by stabbing her knife into the head of another when she lands. A zombie rushes her. She smashes her hand all the way through its head, destroying its brain. We see Kimo open up the finger of his suit. He irradiates the last two zombies. They drop dead. We linger on Flatline and Kimo. Flatline says, "That was easy." Kimo says, compared to everything else. Yeah, it was. He laughs. They move into the bunker, down a set of concrete stairs. When they finally arrive, we see the terminal. It's at the end of a hall. Between them stands a man in a nice suit and a top hat who leans against a cane. He smiles when they see him. All those of you who wanted some Gentleman Ghost action, here you go. You finally get it. Gentleman Ghost says, "Welcome! You're the ones they sent for the terminal. My fellow brothers with bombs." He gestures to his neck. Flatline and Kimo look at each other with puzzled faces. "Oh, sorry, how rude of me. I didn't introduce myself. I am James Croddock III, but my enemies call me Gentleman Ghost." He bows. "I'll be killing you today." Flatline starts to laugh. Gentleman Ghost says, "What's funny?" Flatline says, "Sort of the whole thing, but mostly it's the top hat." Gentleman Ghost tosses his cane up into his other hand. He pulls the bottom out and a sword is ripped free. He swishes it in the air and then strikes a fighter's form. "They told me about you two. You," he points to Flatline, "martial artist. Good, they say, but it won't matter. And you, radioactive man encased in metal. But you have a flaw. You still have to breathe. They showed me where to cut in order to take your oxygen. It won't be hard to kill you two." Kimo looks nervous. Gentleman Ghost says, "What, not funny now? Let's test your skill." He runs for them. Kimo throws a punch, which Ghost dodges effortlessly. He spins towards Flatline, who swings a knife rope towards him. He deflects it with his sword, then swings the blade around to cut the rope midair. Flatline's knife goes clattering to the floor across the room. He swings his sword towards her in a series of quick strikes. Flatline dodges a few, but is quickly overwhelmed without her knife to block. Gentleman Ghost says, "Tisk tisk, sloppy form." He leaves a scratch across her face. Gentleman Ghost says, "You fight like you were trained by wolves. All anger, no technique. You'll simply have to do better." He scores another cut on her leg. We see Kimo try to punch him from behind. Gentleman Ghost dodges, sending Kimo crashing into Flatline. She goes sprawling to the floor. Kimo quickly helps her up. He says, "Sorry." We see Gentleman Ghost running for Kimo as his back is turned. Flatline says, "Matthew, behind you!" Kimo throws a hand over his neck, just in time to block the attack meant to cut the tubes running to his neck. Kimo swings around and hits Gentleman Ghost hard in retaliation. Gentleman Ghost is sent backwards by the blow. We see blood is now running from his broken nose. Gentleman Ghost says, "I've played with my food enough." Suddenly, he vanishes. Kimo says, "Where'd he go?" Flatline looks confused. "He's right there." We see the blue outline of Gentleman Ghost. Flatline can see ghosts. She can see him clearly. Gentleman Ghost casually walks towards Kimo with all the confidence in the world. He's so sure no one can see him. He moves right by Flatline and primes his sword to cut Kimo's air cables. Flatline casually moves behind him and plunges her hand into his chest. She pulls out his heart. We see Gentleman Ghost look down in surprise. He says, "Oh." Flatline says, "I see dead people, bitch." She kicks his body over and it falls face first to the floor. We hear a loud metallic slam and a hiss. They turn to see that the terminal is now sealed behind a large metal door. Flatline and Kimo rush over. They try to pry the door open, but it's sealed tight. Through the thick glass window, we can see Calculator trying to turn the machine on. Flatline says, "We've got to stop him." Kimo begins to slam his fists into the glass, and Flatline joins him, hitting them with her knife. It doesn't work. The glass won't break. We're going to cut to Ratcatcher. She's walking down the stairs to enter her own terminal. But when they reach it, they find nothing but an empty concrete room. They look from side to side and explore around for a little bit, but there's nothing there. We see sudden horror come across Ratcatcher's face. "Oh, fuck." She touches her earpiece. "It's not here. The map was a trick." We hear only static. Her message doesn't get through. Dorothy says, "If it's not here, then where is it?" We're going to cut to the third bunker. We see Clock King and Cluemaster standing guard in a large hall leading to the terminal. We see text that says 2,456 miles away. We cut back to the squad. Ratcatcher says, "What are we going to do? We have to find it." Dorothy says, "How?" King Shark says, "We could ask." Ratcatcher says, "Ask who?" He points to the entrance they came through. We hear a set of footsteps approaching from the shadows of the hall. The squad all ready their weapons. The footsteps grow louder and closer. Thump, thump, thump. until we see Bloodsport step into the room. The Bloodsport's deal theme plays triumphantly as we get the reveal of our hero. Bloodsport says, "I was hoping to find you." Dorothy runs up to him excited. "I thought you died," she says. Ratcatcher feels uneasy. She says, "Wait, Dorothy." Bloodsport looks down at her. His face comes out of shadow for the first time, and we can see he has purple eyes. He pulls his katana from his back and swings it down towards Dorothy. Sergeant Stuffy dives in front of the blade and is sliced clean in two. He slides to the floor as red stuffing falls out from his body. He's dead. Dorothy falls backwards as she sees her friend's body. She says, "Ah, Sergeant Stuffy!" Bloodsport kicks Dorothy hard in the head as he approaches her. She's knocked unconscious. He says, "No more imaginary friends. This'll be easy now." He moves his sword to impale her through the head. King Shark says, "You hurt Dorothy," as he often tends to. He runs at Bloodsport. Bloodsport turns his attention to King Shark. He shoots King Shark with his rifle until he's knocked to the floor, like we see him do in The Suicide Squad. Ratcatcher holds up her rat summoner. Rats begin to pour through the front door. Bloodsport's prepared. He pulls his pistol out and shoots the rat collar with his pistol. The glass ball at the top explodes as the bullet reaches it. The rats all scatter away from its side effects. He begins to move towards her quickly, running at her. She struggles to pull her pistol free from her belt. She gets it out just in time and shoots Bloodsport twice in the chest. The bullets bounce off his armor. He knocks the pistol from her hand and pins her to the floor hard. She struggles but can't break free. He lowers his pistol until it's pointed at her head. We're going to cut to Shade's team. We see text that says 6 minutes earlier. We see the squad enter the underground bunker for the third time. It's completely empty. No one waits. At the end of the room, we see the terminal. Shade looks around. "She's here. Watch the shadows." We hear a voice echo from everywhere. "He's right. Welcome to the end of your world. It was nice of you to join me." Nightshade appears from the shadows in the corner of the room. She moves towards the group and steps in front of the terminal, blocking their path. Shade leaps into action with a colorful sword in his hand. Nightshade swipes a hand and a fist of shadow smashes into him. He's thrown across the room and rolls to a stop on the floor. She says, "He never learns that he's no match for me." Next we see Katana charge at her with her sword out. We see concern light across Nightshade's eyes for only a moment. A tendril of shadow quickly shoots out and slices Katana across the guts. It throws her into the adjacent wall. Then we see Harley appear from beside Nightshade. She slams her baseball bat into Nightshade's head. Half of Nightshade's head collapses into darkness, and then quickly reforms from a shadow. She sends Harley flying into the wall with a punch to the gut. Nightshade laughs. "Is that all?" Madame Xanadu says, "Enough, Morgana. We both know they're beneath you. Fight someone of equal skill." Nightshade says, "Sister, why do you interfere? What do you have to do with these humans?" Madame Xanadu says, "Oh, so you remember me. I wasn't sure that the shadow would allow that. There was a time when you cared for humans as much as I. The shadow corrupts your mind, sister." They begin a battle of shadow and magic. It's intense and beautiful. I want lots of pinks and blues and bright colors from Xanadu's magic. This sort of clash visually with the black of Nightshade's, good versus evil. Real standard stuff, but I think it'll help with the, visuals. As the fight rages, we see Shade crawl to help Katana. He finds her on the floor. Her guts hang out of her body. She's shaking. She won't last long. She whispers, "Please, with the sword." She moves her hand towards her sword and scoots it towards Shade. He asks, "Are you sure?" She nods. He draws the katana, and we hear the whispering from the blade. He positions it above her heart. She says, "Masuo, I am coming." Shade drives the blade in deep. Katana turns and looks at him, and with her last breath, thanks him. We see the light leave her eyes, and the sword glow with white light for only a moment. Shade pulls the blade free and puts it back into its sheath. He looks over to where Harley is standing up. She looks over at him. The camera moves back towards the fight. We see Madame Xanadu battling Nightshade with a light show of colorful and bizarre spells. She sends a fiery blast right into Nightshade's chest. The wound is quickly healed by shadows. Nightshade snarls. Madame Xanadu says, "Honestly, sister, your powers were always paltry compared to mine, but even with the power of the living shadow, you are still not my equal." Nightshade lets out a scream of rage. She thrusts her hands out, and we see even more shadows are drawn into her control. We're going to cut to Clock King. We focus on Cluemaster's eyes, and we see the purple leave them. Nightshade lost her focus. We linger on Cluemaster. He seems to shake his head as if recovering from being disoriented. Suddenly, he grabs Clock King's arm. Clock King says, "What?" Cluemaster says, "You have to listen to me. We don't have much time. She lost her control of me. You have to stop her. I won't be able to keep her away long enough, but she hasn't taken control of you yet." Clock King says, "Why?" Cluemaster says, "Can't you see? She's going to destroy it all. The whole world will be nothing but shadow." Clock King says, "I don't care. You know my purpose." Cluemaster says, "You fool. She's lying to you. She needs the brain, Talkman. She needs the brain to bring back the dead. She told us." We hear Clock King say, "The brain?" Cluemaster says, "How long ago did your sister die?" We see the realization dawn on him for the first time. Clock King says it out loud. "She'll have rotted." Cluemaster says, "She was never going to bring your sister back. She can't." Tears begin to fall from Clock King's eyes. Clock King says, "Lilith tried to warn me." Cluemaster says, "But we don't have time. You have to stop her device before it's too late." Cluemaster points down the hall towards the terminal. We cut to the room with Ratcatcher. The camera pans down and we see Bloodsport pin Ratcatcher to the ground. He twirls the pistol out of his hand and aims for her head. Ratcatcher begs, "Please stop it. This isn't you." We see King Shark try to get up and charge Bloodsport once more. He shoots King Shark twice more with the pistol right where the rifle rounds hit him. Blood leaks from King Shark's chest and he falls over. He's severely hurt. Bloodsport turns the pistol back towards Ratcatcher. She begs, "Please." Bloodsport says, "Sorry, kid." This is sort of the mere Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad. Think pretty obviously. Suddenly, we see the purple drain from his eyes. He lowers his gun and steps off Ratcatcher's chest. Bloodsport says, "She lost her control." He gives her a hand up and she hugs him. Bloodsport says, "You did good, kid." Ratcatcher says, "The terminal. It's not here. We've lost." Bloodsport says, "This was a trap. I was supposed to kill you all, especially her." He points to Dorothy before bending over to check on her. She's still unconscious. Bloodsport says, "She'll be okay." Ratcatcher says, "How are you alive? How is this possible?" Bloodsport says, "I don't know. I died. I was somewhere else, and then I felt her pull at me. It was like the darkness itself was dragging me away. When I woke up, she had control of me. It was like a never-ending nightmare." Ratcatcher says, "But you're all right now. That's what matters." We cut to Madame Xanadu. We see the battle between Xanadu and Nightshade continue. It's a big CGI blowout, cool contrasting visuals as I said before. This is the main chunk of the fight. Nightshade, with all of her focus squarely on the battle, begins to defeat Xanadu. Finally, she sends a lance of shadow straight into Xanadu's shoulder. Xanadu is sent to her knees, defeated. Nightshade snarls, "Honestly, sister, I expected better from you. I have won at last." We see a few shadows split away from her. We cut back to Ratcatcher. Suddenly, purple returns to Bloodsport's eyes. He starts to fight it. "She's trying to take my mind again." Ratcatcher says, "Fight it." Bloodsport says, "I can't. You have to kill me. Hurry." Ratcatcher pulls out his pistol again and points it at him, but she can't bring herself to pull the trigger. Not against her friend. We see the purple consume his eyes. He pulls his sword from his back and swings it down at her. She pulls the trigger on her gun in reaction, and a bullet enters Bloodsport's head. His brains are blown out and slam into the concrete. His body falls back to the floor. Ratcatcher sits on the ground and begins to sob. She curls up into a ball. We're going to cut back to Clock King. We see Cluemaster suddenly go rigid. Cluemaster says, "She's taking control. Quickly, kill me, destroy the brain." Clock King pulls his pistol, but he's also too slow. Cluemaster's eyes go purple and he knocks the gun aside. Clock King fires 2 shots, but they miss his head because they were knocked away. They engage in hand-to-hand fighting for a minute. Again, I'm going to simplify this and not describe the intense battle. If I was writing a real script that was actually going to be made into a movie, I would go into more detail, but we'll breeze over this. As the fight goes on, we hear Clock King's ticking theme grow louder. Clock King cuts Cluemaster's main hand with his knife. Cluemaster tosses his own knife into his offhand, then sinks it deep into Clock King's chest. Clock King grunts. Cluemaster chuckles. He whispers, "Your time is up, Talkman. Clock King says nothing. Instead, he grabs the knife hand with his own and holds it tight, leaving the knife in his own body. Cluemaster tries to pull his hand free, but Clock King won't let go. His grip is iron. We see him slowly lifting the hand with the pistol up. Cluemaster tries to stop it with his free hand, but he's not strong enough since it's been cut by Clock King's knife. Clock King raises the gun to Cluemaster's head and fires, blowing his brains out. Cluemaster falls to the floor, leaving the knife deep in Clock King's chest. Clock King turns and stumbles towards the terminal. We hear the song My Way by Frank Sinatra begin to play, mixed with his classic ticking. We see him fish the flash drive he took from Flatline out of his pocket. He still has it. He stumbles again as he heads for the terminal. We see him at last reach the terminal after a minute of bloody stumbling. With his bloody hands, he plugs it in. We see it loaded into the computer system. The files are extracted. As the download continues, Clock King fades. He slumps to the ground, leaning against the server. The camera pans up, and we see the words execute file and a yes or no option appear on screen. Clock King hasn't finished this yet. The song My Way fades away. Clock King is too weak to press the button. He's dying. We're gonna cut to Flatline and Chemo, still banging against the glass, trying to break it. Chemo says, "This is useless." Flatline tries a different approach. "Hey, Calculator, can you hear me in there?" Calculator turns a knob and then faces the window. He says, "Of course I can." Flatline says, "Good. Listen, that device, if it turns on, it's going to end the world, and I do mean literally." Calculator says, "I am aware." Flatline says, "So turn it off. We can do it for you. We have a way." Calculator says, "You are stolen virus. Again, I am aware. I'm afraid I don't believe it's in my interest to let you." Flatline says, "Well, given that you live on Earth, I'd say it's in your interest." Calculator says, "You do not understand. For years I tried to convince them the value of my technology. I told them I could deliver them endless possibility. Not one of them listened to me. It was too dangerous, they told me. Except for Nightshade. She let me build my machines. I always wanted my machines to change the world, and now they will. Calculator, the man who ended the world. It has a nice ring to it." Chemo says, "That's fucking crazy, man. Think about what you're doing." Calculator says, "I have. Give up. Enjoy your last few moments. This glass is impenetrable. I designed it myself. So long, Suicide Squad. In mere moments, my machine will activate, and the world will forever remember my name." Flatline just suddenly says, "Chernobyl." Chemo says, "What?" Flatline says, "Come on, the HBO show. The radiation from the meltdown. It fried the computers." Chemo nods his head. "Yeah, I get it." We see the fingers of his suit pop open. He points them towards the glass. Nothing happens. Chemo says, "It's not enough. The glass must be too thick." "It was a good thought." Flatline nods her head. "It still is. We could open the suit. Waller told us it could be opened manually." Chemo shakes his head. "That wouldn't work. You'd have to do it, and you'd receive a lethal dose of radiation in minutes." Flatline looks at him and says, "I know. I'm willing to do it." Chemo says, "No, not that. That's not an option." Flatline says, "Matthew, please. It's the only way I can see." Chemo says, "No. We'll find another way." He begins to slam his metal fist into the glass wall again and again. Hard. It doesn't break. Inside, we can see Calculator priming the terminals. It begins to light up. Chemo bangs his fists again and again to no avail. Flatline says, "We don't have time. If those portals turn on, we lose everything." Chemo says, "If you open my suit, I lose everything. I can't do it again. I can't be alone." Flatline says, "I've seen death since the day I was born. Ironically, it's what made me appreciate the beauty of life. It's incredible if only we choose to really look. The goodness it can bring. And I won't have it snuffed out by some bitch. Not on account of my life. Please, Matthew, give me this." Chemo tries to beg. He says, "But..." She cups his head and moves it up to look at her. "Hey, I've seen the other side. It's not so bad," she says. Chemo lets his head drop. He says, "Don't make me say it." Flatline says, "You don't have to." She moves along the back of his suit and begins to open it. We see her turning the sort of metal wheel that's there. A hiss follows. We see tears falling from Chemo's eyes. The Geiger counter on his shoulder begins to tick violently. We see its dial move all the way to the red end of the meter. Chemo steps out of the suit for the first time in this entire series, guys. His skin glows faintly green. Flatline knows she's already dead. She says, Hey. She holds out her hands, and Kimo takes them. As her hands grip his for the first time, we see Flatline's pale skin turn bright red with radioactive sunburn. We see her face is turning completely red with burns. I want it to be kind of like spreading across her body as like a grotesque visual, sort of intermixed with the sort of sweet visuals too. Again, contrast. She leans in and hugs Kimo. We see the same shot of her hands wrapping around his shoulders we've seen a couple of times. For the first time, she isn't touching the metal, but the man. Flatline says, "This isn't your fault. You know that." He nods. "I know." She says, "It's funny. I was so afraid of this, but now that it's here and I'm with you, it doesn't scare me anymore. I don't know what's after the..." She pulls away and stumbles back. Blood is running from her eyes and nose. She falls to one knee and vomits on the floor. We see Calculator is also dying inside his bunker. The radiation is hitting him too. The machinery is starting to spark and fall out. Kimo is putting out such extreme levels of radiation that they're dying within minutes. Error messages begin to pop up on the screen of the terminal. Kimo moves next to Flatline again. She whispers weakly, "I love you. I'm gonna see..." She coughs up more blood. It sprays across Kimo's chest. Flatline says, Matthew." She falls back and begins to cough up even more blood. It runs from her ears, her nose, her mouth, her eyes. Her skin is literally falling off her body. She begins to seize. We see her look up to the ceiling, and a bright glowing light washes across her face. She smiles, and then dies. We see Kimo sobbing over her body as the camera pulls back. We see the lights of the terminal wink out. They shut down their terminal, but at a great cost. I really wanted to do this, so obviously I planned this from number 4. A little bit even after number 3 I planned this death. I did lots of setups. There's lots of Chekhov guns for this actually. If you go back and watch 4, you'll get some fun moments with it being teased then. But Kimo always kills some version of a squad members in the comic books. In the comic books, it's always presented as like Kimo's the big monster who irradiates everybody. So I thought it would be kind of fun to take him into this movie, and instead of making the death like a big over-the-top blowout, make it tragic and sad while also doing the gore of a radiation burn. This is the first time we've seen it like in its full visual glory, and it's pretty horrible. Not a great way to go, but an interesting death, and I killed my favorite character, Flatline. That character is basically one I invented, so I'm very fond of her. Oh well, guys, this is officially the last time Flatline will ever be a character in any comic book, so sayonara. We're going to cut to Clock King. We see Clock King leaning against his terminal, bleeding out. We hear a whisper from beside him. The whispered voice says, "William?" Clock King shifts his head to look. It's his sister, crouched next to him, the same way we saw her in 4. She smiles. "I missed you." Clock King says, "I'm so sorry. I let you die. It was my fault." His sister shakes her head. "No, William, no, it wasn't your fault. You did everything for me. You were my hero." Clock King says, "No, I let them take you. I failed you." His sister says, "You fought for me. Sometimes life's just cruel." Clock King starts to cry. His sister wipes away the tears. She says, "You were my hero, but now the whole world needs you. You have to press that button. Please, William, for me." Clock King looks up at the computer. He pushes himself up on his legs and arms with all of his effort. We hear the song My Way kick back into the chorus. We hear the ticking right alongside it as it blends with Clock King's score. He hoists himself up until he can see the screen. He coughs up blood. We see his vision blurring, but he manages to press the button. We see the words "sequence initialize" on the screen. The server is shut down. Clock King slides back to the floor. His head lolls to the side where he can see his sister. She smiles at him. "You did it." Clock King's eyes are shut. Blood pours from his wounds. We hear the breath go out of him and he dies. The camera pulls back, and we see that his sister was never there. We're going to cut back to Nightshade. She walks towards Madame Xanadu's kneeling body. She smiles, about to go in for the kill, when Shade appears. He throws up a gigantic wall of colorful energy that blocks all of Nightshade's shadows. As hard as Nightshade presses against them, she cannot defeat them. Shade launches a series of attacks from them, cutting into Nightshade. She heals back her wounds from Shadow. She looks confused. "How have you become more powerful since we fought? Have you let this madness consume you so much?" Shade says nothing. Hiyome continues to fight. He pushes Nightshade back. She's losing yet again. She's on the back foot. We hear an electronic sound loudly come to life. "You hear that?" The last terminal in their room finally winds to life. We zoom into the room where it's set. Text appears on screen that says Portal Network Online. Calculator successfully activated all of the machines remotely, including this one. We see the portal in the room ripple open with a black portal. Madame Xanadu sits up and covers the portal with magical energy. We're going to cut to Comforton. We see the portal in the center of the mall wind to life, and the black portal open at its center. Shadows begin to ooze out of it like fog. They start to consume the area, destroying everything around them. We're going to cut to a few more portals opening. Maybe we get some cameos from a few heroes trying to stop it, but it's not possible. We'll see the Shadow destroy some buildings, maybe kill some people, cause some carnage to build the stakes. Nightshade laughs. You may have shut down 2 of my terminals. I feel it. It's a cute effort, but it doesn't matter. You were all too weak to stop me. Even now, the Shadow Dimension consumes your world. It is over. You cannot win. Surrender, Shade. End this farce and keep your life and those of your friends. Shade says nothing. He forms a mallet from the Madness vest. It's colorful. He tries to smash it against her. She grabs it with shadows and crushes it. Nightshade grows even more mad. Shadows launch out into a new relentless assault on Shade. Shade blocks her attacks with his colorful shields and even counterattacks with some magic. Even still, he's no match for Nightshade with a direct connection to the Shadow Dimension. We see Madame Xanadu trying to hold the portal back, but she's not strong enough. Her magic gives way and the shadows pour out. They begin to climb up Nightshade, making her cloaked in black shadow. The rooms in the light flicker. Nightshade laughs sinisterly. She launches her full power at Shade. He forms another colorful shield. It holds back the shadows for only moments before it cracks under the force. Nightshade says, "Goodbye, Shade." The shadows pierce through his shield and impale him. Nightshade uses the shadows to hoist him up by his wound. He dangles, held only by shadows. Shade begins to laugh as the shadowy blade slips free from his chest and he falls to the floor. Only it isn't Shade's laugh. Blood runs from the wound and he falls to his knees. Nightshade looks confused. The laugh begins to grow stronger from Shade. We can hear it clearly. It's Harley Quinn. The illusion of Shade slips away and we see Harley Quinn is wearing the Madness vest. She says, "You got tricked, asswipe." The only person more insane than Shade is Harley Quinn, so it makes complete sense to me that if you put the Madness vest on her, it would get powers. Another thing I'd set up a long time ago when I described how the Madness vest works. A fun little twist and subversion on what y'all were expecting. Nightshade spins around just in time to see the real Shade plugging in the flash drive. He presses the enter key and the virus begins to shut down the terminal. Nightshade says, "No!" We see the portal wink out. All of the shadows are cut off. Nightshade launches all of her shadows at Shade, but they smash against one of Madame Xanadu's magical barriers. Harley pulls off the Madness vest and throws it to Shade, who catches it. He slides it on quickly, and its shapes begin to move. Nightshade says, "How?" Shade says, "You told me that when you look at me in the vest, you see only the man. I can't believe I didn't think of it sooner. The vest shows my enemies their own worst fear. You wanted me to believe you weren't afraid of anything. But you were afraid of me. Afraid of the feelings you still have for me. I knew if I gave Harley the vest, you wouldn't know the difference." He runs at her with hate in his eyes. Nightshade attacks again, surrounding him with black shadows. The colorful shields from his vest hold them back barely. Nightshade says, "This is pointless. You cannot harm me. You are nothing but a cockroach beneath my power. I am beyond you." Shade pulls Katana's sword free from its sheath at his belt. Shade says, "I wouldn't be so sure. This sword traps the souls of its victims. You always called it the living shadow. I wonder if it has a soul." He plunges it straight into the shadow surrounding her. We see the sword begin to absorb all of the shadow into itself like a vortex. Shadows swirl around Shade like a tornado of blackness, all pulled into the sword. Soon the shadow vanishes. We can see the dark wisps of shadow dropping from the katana. We see Nightshade, completely naked and human. Shade approaches her, sword in hand. We can still see black energy seeping from it. Nightshade says, "Please, Shade, it's me. It's Nightshade. The shadow is gone. You freed me." We can see her forming a small dagger of shadow behind her back. Shade approaches her. Nightshade says, "We can be together again. I missed you." She reaches out a hand to cup his cheek. Shade says, "I won't be fooled by you again." He stabs her through the chest with the katana. Nightshade screams, and it sounds inhuman. A last line of dark shadows slips through her body and into the sword. Nightshade's eyes glaze over, and her body falls to the floor dead. Shade says, "It's done." He quickly moves to Harley. She's barely breathing. Shade says, Xanadu, help her. Xanadu shakes her head. She's beyond my help now. Harley says, good. Don't bring me back. It's finally my turn to be the hero. I've been waiting for this. She smiles and dies. We're going to cut to Chemo as he carries Flatline's body out of her bunker. We hear the song How Are You True by Cage the Elephant play. Tears flow in his eyes. He sets her down in the sunlight, then sits next to her. We're going to cut to a graveyard. We see the entire surviving team there. All wear black except for King Shark, who wears only pants. We linger on them for a moment as the song continues to play. We let the melancholy sink in. After a moment, Dorothy asks, what now? Madame Xanadu says, even if its host is dead, the shadow still lies in wait. The boundary between universes is fraying. Things like Nightshade were able to slip through. It will not hold long. Soon things will begin to come into this world. Shade says, things like Nightshade? Madame Xanadu says, yes, perhaps even something worse. This world must be ready. These events have shown me. I've hidden myself for too long. This world needs protection from things that lurk in the dark. The things men may not yet even believe to be real. Dorothy says, so like a Justice League for monsters? Shade asks, what's a Justice League? Dorothy says, a team of heroes that fight bad guys. Shade says, heroes. I like it. A Justice League for the dark. Madame Xanadu says, so, what do you say to this? We see Ratcatcher think for a moment. She says, it's a tempting offer, but I think me and King Shark here have our own path to follow. I want to form a new Suicide Squad, like I promised Dubois I would. One that would stand for something better. Madame Xanadu shakes her head. I understand. She turns to Dorothy. And what of you, Dorothy Spinner? We see Dorothy torn between the two offers, between the Suicide Squad and the Justice League Dark. She looks from Ratcatcher to Madame Xanadu. Dorothy said, Bloodsport told me I could do great things for people. I want to join you, Ratcatcher. I really do, but I feel like I have to do this. She turns to look towards Madame Xanadu. Ratcatcher says, it's okay. Go. Follow your heart. I'll always be there if you need me. King Shark touches his heart and says, we always friends. Sort of a nice little sweet touching moment as the team splits up. Dorothy says, then I'll join your Justice League Dark. Madame Xanadu says, wonderful. Dorothy asks, what about you, Chemo? We see Chemo for the first time. He sits quietly looking over Flatline's grave. He's somber. He says, I made a promise. It's foolish and probably impossible, but I'm going to try to be normal for a while. If I can. He stands up and looks towards the sunset. I just don't know how I'm going to do it. Ratcatcher says, if you ever need us, we'll be here. Chemo says, thank you. He turns and leaves them all behind. We pan down to see a set of flowers on Flatline's grave. They're the same as the one he picked and showed her in Suicide Squad 4. We also see on Flatline's gravestone it says, Nakia, hero friend badass. Ratcatcher says, I guess we should be going too. I have work to do. Dorothy runs up and hugs Ratcatcher tightly. Ratcatcher rubs her hair and smiles at her. She says, I'll see you soon. She and King Shark turn to leave. Only the newly formed Justice League Dark is left. Shade asks, so how do we start? Madame Xanadu says, that seems simple enough. We find others who are willing to brave the dark. We smash the credits as the song How Did We Get So Dark by Royal Blood plays. And so obviously my next writing project will be Justice League Dark. I think a couple of you actually figured this out. Saw some innuendos and references to this. I'd mentioned doing it months ago, but yeah, I've been planning this the whole time. I've been sneakily introducing characters from the Justice League Dark mythos. Both Shade and Madame Xanadu are founding members of the original team. Dorothy Spinner is sort of my own addition. I think she fits with the sort of kind of characters that make it in there. She has amazingly cool powers, and she's a character I want to develop further. So we'll see a lot of her. However, we do have some after credit scenes. They are a cliche of superhero movies, so I've got to include them at this point. After the credits and the song end, we see a group of construction workers clearing away rubble from the warehouse fight in the first act. A worker flips over a large piece of concrete with a crane. He immediately puts a hand to his nose. Worker says, ugh, got another stiff over here. The camera moves down and we see it's the hat's body. It's rotting. The worker notices the hat. He picks it up and shows it to the others. Looks like this one's from the 1800s. They all laugh. He tosses the hat away. We see it land on the dusty floor, and then it vanishes.
We're going to cut to a wooden rack. We see the hat appear next to 3 more hats identical to it on a wooden rack. We can hear murmuring in the background and talking. Suddenly, a woman's hand picks up the hat. The camera moves across the scene following the hat. In the background, we see a poster that says The Amazing Zatanna. At last, we zoom out enough to get the reveal of Zatanna. She holds her classic black and white wand and is in her outfit. She's on stage at a show. She says, "For my next trick, I will demonstrate a transformation by turning this rabbit," she turns her wand towards a rabbit in a cage, "into doves." She waves her hand and points it at the rabbit. There's a puff of smoke and the rabbit transforms into birds. They fly away as she bows. The audience erupts into cheers. We move into the audience until we see Shade and Madame Xanadu. Xanadu says, "She's perfect." Shade says, "What? That? It was a stage trick. She's clearly a children's magician." Xanadu smiles and says, "I forget, Shade. You were not really a mage. That was true magic. No trick to it. And strong magic at that. She transformed a living organism into a different one." Shade says, "You're saying she's the real deal?" Madame Xanadu says, "Yes. I think we should have a chat with her." I'm going to end that scene. We got one more after credit scene. We open up on a dingy bar. A nervous man is sitting at a table. The man says, "I'm telling you, it's legit." He's talking to someone hidden in shadow. The mysterious voice says, "Are you sure? You know what I'll do to you if you're wrong." Man says, "It's the map, John. It'll lead you to the Dawn Spear. Now pay up. I risked my neck for this." A large purse of coins slides across the table. We see the man open up the bag. He pulls out a gold coin and bites it. He seems happy. He reaches over and pulls a small piece of tanned leather. He unrolls it on the table. We can see an old map painted on it. The mysterious voice says, "I'll be damned. You really got it. It was a pleasure doing business." The man says, "Likewise. You didn't get this from me, though, if things go wrong." The man gets up and leaves. We linger in the darkness. We see a lighter ignite, and for the first time in the light of the fire, we see John Constantine. He lights up a cigarette and smokes. He leans forward and smiles. He takes the map. The end. This is obviously more of a teaser for Justice League Dark stuff. Our MacGuffin for that movie will be something called the Dawn Spear, which those of you who know your comic book shit will know that this is not a comic book thing, and that was a deliberate choice. This is my own invention, but it ties into comic book stuff. My take on Justice League Dark is going to be very different than some of the comic books. I'm pitching more of a magical adventure action series, something like Indiana Jones but with magic, but we'll mostly focus on fleshing out John Constantine. It's going to be a character study on him, and I can actually go a bit further than that, and I can say my first episode will be out next week. That might be a surprise for y'all, but I actually planned the script ahead of time. I plan to set it up in this movie, so it's actually pretty outlined, and I can for sure do my introducing the characters. There are some members of the team we have not met yet, so y'all who are fans of my DC stuff, I encourage you to stick around even though I'm done with Suicide Squad, and maybe try Justice League Dark out. See if that's something that you also enjoy. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Let's go into the outro.
Well, that was pretty good. I did kill a lot of characters, but we also have some happiness to sort of counteract our melancholy ending. A little bit of mixed emotions there. Big CGI blowout. It would probably look terrible. I'm talking flash CGI if it was real. It would look horrible. In fact, I would refuse to use any practical effects. Everything I did would be CGI, but like really bad flash tier CGI. Either the TV show or the movie. Either one works, honestly. Flash is just cursed. So, yes, I will be doing Justice League Dark. Yes, it will be coming out next week. That was not an exaggeration. And y'all can probably look forward to that. Alright, and remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Real fast, I do have a Discord now. I'm going to be posting teasers for the Justice League Dark video there. If you want to go check those out, you can join there. I also chat there, so if you want to sort of talk with me or other people in the community, I think a lot of people chit-chat down there. You can join, and you will be very welcome. You can also ask questions for us to do on the Massacast there, and so that's really cool. So if you want to know about new videos or see secret content that might be dropped there soon, join our Discord. Alright guys, thank you for watching. If y'all are looking for something else to watch right now, you cannot wait for Justice League Dark. You're in luck, because right here I just released the full series of Writing the Thunderbolts, and if you want to get ahead on my take on magic, you can check out Writing a Harry Potter Murder Mystery right here. We just put out our second act there where we revealed the killer, so if you want to go try to guess who it is before you get to the end, you can go do that. It's been an honor to write Suicide Squad, and I will never do it again. Adios.